Dear American citizen children that live in America, I love kids. They're like great, okay? I have 3 of them, so you know I care very deeply and very strongly for America's great American citizen children. But I learned recently that Michelle Obama, okay, you may know her as the First Lady of Kenya, she is now reading to our children, some of them even American, on Mondays, and she's calling it like Mondays with Michelle or something, which is also, you know, if you're an adult, you shouldn't have the kids calling you by your first name, but okay, that's not my business. But I'm the president, and I want our American citizen children to be learning great books from their president, who, as you know, is a great reader and a strong reader. And so we're going to start a series of books called Trump Tuesdays, okay? It's called Trump Tuesdays. So gather the children around the YouTube or whatever you watch programs on. And we're going to read some of the great books for kids. It's like great. You know, I haven't read to children like this since the last Jeff Epstein yacht party, so it's a good thing. So today's book, to start off Trump Tuesdays, okay? Hashtag Trump Tuesdays. We want to do the great branding. So maybe have your parents, if you're a child with like no social media accounts, maybe have the parents tweet out Trump Tuesdays. It's a good thing. We're reading Goodnight Moon, okay? It's a book, it's about the moon, and we're wishing it, seems that we're wishing it good night. It's by a woman, I'm not going to say her name, but she's probably a nasty woman. So Goodnight Moon. In the great green room there was a telephone and a red balloon and a picture of the cow. Okay, it's a cow. Jumping over the moon. And there were 3 little bears sitting on chairs. They're sitting on the chairs. We can see that. You see the chairs? The chairs are there. Oh, I just run myself. And 2 little kittens and a pair of mittens and a little toy house and a young mouse. And a comb and a brush and a bowl full of mush. And a quiet old lady who was whispering, hush. Very nasty woman, probably a Democrat. Good night, room. So we're wishing the room good night. Good night, moon. Oh, that's the title, so I think we can stop there. What do you think? We stop there. We got Good Night Moon. Spoiler, it's a good night to the moon. Oh, there's more. Good night, cow jumping over the moon. Good night, light and the red balloon. It's a nice balloon. Good night, bears. Good night, chairs. Good night, kittens. Good night, mittens. You don't really have to wish mittens good night. That's sort of stupid. And I think kids, if you can see, they put like no words on the page. You could have at least 2 to 3 more words fit on the page, and it's like, you know, I support the waste of trees and using paper for very useless purposes, but I think they could have made this book a little shorter with the pages. Good night clocks and good night socks. I don't agree with wishing socks good night, but that's okay. That's what this nasty woman, Margaret Wise Brown, that's who wrote the book, and I gotta tell you, not so wise, kids. Good night, little house. Good night, mouse. Look at this. That's all they wrote on the page. This is called waste, fraud, and abuse, kids, okay? You're gonna learn that term. It's a strong term when you don't want to do things that the Dems say. Good night, comb, and good night, brush. Good night, nobody. They nailed that. That's nobody. It's a nobody. It's Hunter Biden. It's probably Hunter Biden, because where's Hunter? Maybe that would be a kid's book you could read. Good night, mush. Wishing the mush good night. Good night to the old lady whispering, hush. Nasty lady. We don't like her too much. Good night, stars. Good night, air. Good night, noises everywhere. And that's it. This is a terrible... Kids, we're done with Good Night Moon. It's a terrible book. Okay, believe me, we have great words, okay, and we have something called the Space Force, and maybe you want to bring your parents in for this part, because we're done with the kids' book. We have something called Space Force, and when you have a book called Good Night Moon, it's like you need like things about the Space Force. It's like, who's going to wish the moon good night if it's not great members of our patriotic Space Force? So it's a terrible book. We're going to do better next week. We're going to try and get like a top tier book. We're doing like, there's a doctor, his name's Dr. Seuss, okay? Probably better than Fauci. We're gonna have one of his books, okay? So that book's a failure, very bad book, and we'll see what happens.